The lesson unit firstly looks at the world of work. We discuss how your interests and abilities can influence your achievement in school subjects. We also look at the different kinds of learning activities and which thinking and learning skills you need with everyone. Lastly, during this topic, we will look at how you can make an informed choice on a career choice. Secondly, we will look at the health, social, and environmental responsibilities we each have. We will look at Earth Day and how we can contribute to conserving and protecting the environment. Under this theme, we will again look at the issue of HIV/AIDS and how we can contribute to caring for and supporting people with the illness. Lastly, we look at our constitutional rights and responsibilities, and especially nation building. We discuss different ways we can contribute to nation building. The relationship between achievement in school subjects, interests, and abilities. We all have school subjects in which we take an interest. There are also certain subjects in which you might have an above-average ability, like in certain difficult subjects like mathematics. It has been proven that when learners take an interest in a subject, they achieve better marks than in those that they don't take an interest in. Learners' ability to master a subject, especially the understanding subjects, also contributes to their achievement in the specific subject. It is therefore important that you are aware of your interests and abilities. It is not to say that if you have an interest in a subject that you will achieve in it. However, it is possible to improve your achievement in the subject by learning harder or taking extra lessons. If you have an interest in something, you can achieve anything you want. The kinds of learning activities related to different subjects. Let's look at the different kinds of learning activities and the subjects and thinking skills that fit in with them. One, practical learning activities. It is when you apply the knowledge you have learned in the subject practically. For example, it is to go through a science experiment with your teacher and then apply it practically in class. This learning process needs a logical, ordered, and systematic thinking way. It mainly includes subjects like mathematics, science, and technical drawing. Two, theoretical learning activities. These are subjects that are factual. They are not subjects where learners have to understand to learn. Learners just have to memorize the facts. Therefore, learners learn the facts and convey them. The way of thinking in these subjects are more dreamy. Learners don't have the facts physically in their hands, but use their imagination to give life to the facts. They include subjects like history and life orientation. 3. Individual learning activities. This is when learners must execute a certain task to achieve a certain learning outcome. They must use their imagination, knowledge, talents, and abilities for the task. It is like when you have to write a descriptive essay for Afrikaans or English. Individual learning activities are also used in subjects like mathematics and science, where learners have to solve a problem as an individual and don't work in a group. 4. Group activities. This learning activity can occur in all school subjects. It is when learners work in a group to complete a learning activity. Learners must be able to think innovatively and must be able to share their ideas with the group members. Paste and fill in the information. The decision-making process to choose a career category. There are so many careers out there. How do I go about choosing a certain career? It is important that the career you decide upon fits in with your interests, abilities, individual strong points, and passions in life. One, identify your strong points. Ask yourself the following questions. What am I really good at? Are you maybe a good orator? Do you maybe have a strong personality? Are you maybe someone who can work persistently? Are you a good problem solver? Are you a good organizer and manager? Do you like taking on the leader's position in situations? 2. Identify your passions. A passion is something you feel strongly about, and that is important to you. It is something within yourself that drives you to participate in an activity. It is like when you are passionate about animals. You will therefore gladly participate in activities which address and prevent animal cruelty. You may be so passionate about it that you want to follow a career in wildlife preservation. 3. Identify your interests and abilities. Interests are things you like doing and what you would like to do. It is like your hobbies. You may not always be as good in your interest, but it is something you like doing. Your abilities are the things you are good at. It is like when you have the ability to quickly understand and solve mathematical problems. 4. Identify the career opportunities. Careers are usually divided in 3 main categories. A. Formal sector or work provider. B. Informal sector or work provider. C. Own business. A. Formal work provider. It is a job at an established organization where you earn a monthly salary and enjoy other things like a pension fund and medical aid. Examples are banks, the government, and other established companies. B. Informal work creation. People who own their own businesses can also fall into this category. It is usually people with little training who work as employees in the sector. The disadvantage with this kind of job is that there are not always jobs available and workers don't have advantages like a pension and medical fund. It is usually careers like waiters and domestic workers. C. Own business. People with their own businesses also work in the informal sector. They are responsible for all the activities and divisions in the workplace. To work for yourself means you have to make provision yourself for pension and medical aid. The biggest disadvantage is that you are not guaranteed a set amount of money every month. Paste the activity and fill in the missing information. Paste this activity and answer the questions. Look at the table on the screen that gives examples of interests and abilities and related careers. Paste the activity and complete. In Grade 7, we looked at environmental health issues like air pollution, ground pollution, and noise pollution. An issue that attracts a lot of attention today is global warming. Even though everybody talks about it, there are only a few people who actually know what the concept involves. The Earth's atmosphere consists of 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, 0.03% carbon dioxide, and 0.9% parts water vapor. Even though the percentage of carbon dioxide looks very small, it is very important for life on Earth. Photosynthesis takes place through the presence of carbon dioxide. But now it happens that the air is being overloaded with carbon dioxide and other pollutant gases in the atmosphere, and it disturbs the balance in the atmosphere. An important concept in global warming is the so-called greenhouse effect. The next illustration is taken from climatechange.procon.org and gives a complete picture of what it involves. The greenhouse effect. Some solar radiation is reflected by the Earth and the atmosphere. Most radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and warms it. Some of the infrared radiation passes through the atmosphere. Some is absorbed and re-emitted in all directions by greenhouse gas molecules. The effect of this is to warm the Earth's surface and the lower atmosphere. Infrared radiation is emitted by the Earth's surface. The consequences of global warming are thus clear. The Earth's temperature is getting higher, and the more gases that are pumped into the air, the worse it will become. The process changes the normal climate circumstances, and it causes nature disasters to take place. How can you and I address the problem of global warming? There are many small actions to address the problem. It is, after all, the things we do every day to emit the gases into the air. Look at the use of electricity in your house. Do you have unnecessary lights on? Switch off all lights in the home when you leave a room. Cars cause a big problem through the gases they emit into the air. Try buying an eco-friendly car, or rather drive with one car instead of 2 or 3. Taxi clubs save petrol and decrease the emission of gases into the air. Plant a tree. Try and plant a tree each year on Arbor Day. Also use more recycled materials to preserve our tree life. However, one of the most important steps is to try and keep our environment clean at all times. We have now looked specifically at global warming, but there are also immediate issues in our environment that need our help. We will look at 3 basic needs which municipalities must meet to keep the environment healthy, and the ordinance or policy that goes hand in hand with it. 1. Ordinance on solid refuse. The local government is compelled to remove all kinds of refuse and take it to a local dumping ground. The community, however, also has a responsibility. A person may only dump refuse at dumping grounds which fall within the framework of the municipality. A person is not allowed to dump animal carcasses or any meat products. The person's refuse must also be accessible to the workers who remove it. 2. Ordinance on sanitation. The ordinance regulates the use of sanitation services provided by the local government. There is also a responsibility between the provider and the consumer. It was set up to ensure that residents live in a healthy and hygienic environment, and so that the water sources are protected against industrial and sewerage refuse. The consumer must work together with the government to establish a healthy environment. For example, you're not allowed to let your refuse water drain freely into the street, and if you have a blockage, you have to have it mended. So, we work together to create a healthy environment. 3. Ordinance on water supply. Municipalities must supply water to the local communities. The ordinance was set into place to regulate the supply of water and the usage of it. It ensures that the water structure and resources are used sustainably. It once again asks for a responsibility from the consumer. A household shouldn't waste water. Turn off all taps tightly and don't let the water run when you brush your teeth. Also, wet your garden in the late afternoon when the sun is not at its hottest. If we don't conserve our resources, we are being very selfish, and then we don't think about the generations after us. The Earth's resources are not inexhaustible. We therefore must make provision for the next generation's lives through our actions and planning. Pace the activity and fill in the informed tan. Write the following new words in your books. Photosynthesis. Plants use the sunlight and carbon monoxide to produce food and to set oxygen free. Sustainable development. It is the process of development of soil, cities, businesses, and communities, which fulfills the current generation without it having a negative impact on future generations. Sustainable tourism. It is a process where the tourism potential is developed without it harming the resources. Earth Day. Earth Day was started on April 22, 1970. It is an international yearly celebration in support of the Earth and to protect the environment. It is celebrated by 192 countries worldwide. Earth Day focuses our attention on the environmental issues that are destroying our environment. The aim of Earth Day is to make people aware of things we can do to conserve the Earth. It focuses on things like conservation, recovery, and the working together of communities. Earth Day focuses on salvage of rubbish, reuse of rubbish, lessening of rubbish materials, and restoration of the environment. What can I do to conserve the Earth? One, look at your water consumption. Don't waste water. Keep taps tightly closed and don't let them run unnecessarily, even when you are brushing teeth. Repair all leaking pipes in and around the house. 2. Try and use your car as little as possible. If you can walk or cycle, do that. Your car's emission gases destroy the world's atmosphere. In cases where it's not possible, start a taxi club. It helps if there are fewer cars on the road and lessens the emission of gases. 3. Recycle. Place tins, glass, paper, and plastic in separate rubbish holders. When you buy with the least packaging. In this way, you help the environment by simplifying the removal process. 4. Make your own compost. Paste the worksheet in your books and list the steps on how to make your own compost. 1. Collect all fruit and vegetable peels, eggshells, overripe fruit, and bones from the kitchen. 2. Collect organic rubbish out of the garden, like leaves, cut grass, and plants removed from the earth. 3. Put all the rubbish in a big container like a plastic container or big black bag. Now add manure, chicken, sheep, or cow manure. Add a little water without overly wetting it. 4. Close up the mixture and place in a sunny, warm place for a few weeks. The compost is ready if it is dark and slimy. 5. You can now work in the compost around your plants or feed the ground before you plant seedlings. The core of the lesson is that it should make you aware of the issues in your immediate environment. The environment is important to us. Therefore, it is important that we will respect and conserve it. There are so many small things you can do to make a contribution towards environmental health. You can lead by being an example to other people to do the same. You can, for example, start a project by recycling materials, group them, and get rid of them in a fitting way. In this way, you can make a contribution to the protection and conservation of your environment. Develop and implement an environmental health program. How are we protected against environmental health problems? The Bill of Human Rights states that humans have a right to a safe environment. The government is therefore responsible by implementing laws to guard us against environmental issues like air pollution. This law must ensure that the quality of air is controlled so that it is not harmful for people or animals. South Africa currently also uses international guidelines regarding air pollution control. The guidelines give an indication of the allowable pollutants in the air. It indicates if the air is lowly, mildly, or highly polluted, and with it indicates each level's health danger. Municipalities take the following steps to handle the environmental health problems caused by air pollution. The municipalities measure the amount of polluting material in the air at certain places and times. In this way, the levels of air pollution are monitored the whole time. The municipalities show on maps the areas with low, medium, and high levels of air pollution. The municipalities also do research to determine the reasons for air pollution, especially in areas where there is a high risk. Set up a plan of action to combat air pollution and set aims to lessen air pollution within a certain time frame. Development and implementation of an environmental health program. We mainly looked at air pollution and the strategies the municipalities have to combat it. But what can I do as individual to help solve the problem? 1. Our cars' gases also contribute to serious air pollution. It is especially harmful to young children and can cause asthma. Today, there are many car manufacturers who develop cars that emit pure gases and therefore lessen air pollution. In future, more people will be able to buy cars like these. 2. The heating in our houses in winter also contribute to air pollution. People use charcoal and anthracite in their fireplaces, and the smoke emitted is also harmful for the environment. It is better to use gas heaters. They are less harmful for the environment. There is another serious environmental health problem, and it is rubbish removal. We all generate rubbish in the form of plastic, glass, tin cans, and organic rubbish. Organic rubbish comes from the preparation of food, for example, eggshells and the peels of fruit and vegetables. The municipalities take our rubbish to landfills, usually outside of towns or cities' boundaries. Johannesburg generates an incredible 1.4 tons of rubbish a year. You can therefore see that it becomes a problem removing the rubbish. When the rubbish dumps become full, the municipalities will usually flatten the dump and cover it with grass. It is then usually used as a park. The water under the ground of the landfill can, however, get polluted by a fluid that develops when the rubbish rots. The fluid is extremely harmful to people, animals, and plants. The modern rubbish dumps are designed in such a way that they have catchment tanks, which catches up the fluid. The fluid is then treated with chemicals and pumped into the drains. The communities living near the rubbish dumps can suffer from burning eyes, sore throats, and headaches, which are caused by the gases that are emitted during the rotting of the rubbish. Rubbish dumps which are not controlled can also attract rats and flies, and this can have serious health implications. It then happens that the rubbish dumps must be closed due to the problems. How can we help solve the problem? We can all help by trying to reduce the amount of rubbish we generate. We can recycle glass, tins, paper, and plastic. We can recycle organic rubbish by making compost.
What is HIV or AIDS and how it is transmitted? AIDS, the full name is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, also known as HIV. HIV is transmitted from an infected person to another by bodily fluids. It mostly happens through living a promiscuous life, but can also be transmitted through contaminated blood. The virus stays in the body for a whole lifetime. A person can be HIV positive and look and feel completely healthy for many years. The illness can therefore be dormant in a person and only later start showing symptoms. According to medical science, all people with HIV infection eventually get AIDS. AIDS is a deadly illness. There is no medication that can cure HIV infection, but there are medications which can postpone the beginning of AIDS. The medication also helps to alleviate the symptoms of AIDS partially. HIV attacks the immune system, which protects the body against infections and eventually destroys it. AIDS then develops in the final stages of HIV. AIDS is not a single illness, but a whole medical syndrome when the immunity system doesn't work anymore. Someone with a weakened immunity system is vulnerable for infections which appear in people with healthy immunity systems. It is called opportunistic infections because they take the opportunity to attack the weakened immunity system. Certain kinds of cancer also appear when the immunity system is weakened. It can take years before someone's immunity system is weakened in such a way that the person becomes ill and is diagnosed with AIDS. During this time, which can take 15 years or even longer, the person can still look and feel healthy. That explains why many people don't know that they have AIDS. However, even if they feel and look healthy, they can still transmit the disease to other people. HIV can be transmitted from one person to the other by a promiscuous lifestyle, pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding, from an infected mother to her child, injections or pricks with contaminated needles, the use of contaminated surgical instruments, for example during traditional circumcision, blood transfusions with contaminated blood, contact of a mucous membrane with contaminated blood or bodily fluids, for example if contaminated fluids come into contact with the eyes. The virus can't enter unbroken skin. A person won't necessarily be infected if they are exposed to the HIV virus. The probability of the infection is determined by factors like the concentration of HIV in the bodily fluids. Even though HIV has been found in saliva, researchers are of the opinion that the concentration is too low to transmit HIV by open mouth kisses. However, if the persons have broken skin in the mouth or gums, the possibility that a kiss can transmit the disease is not excluded. There are certain myths around HIV. It is accepted that HIV cannot be transmitted in the following ways: mosquito bites, urine or sweat, public toilets, saunas, showers or swimming pools, sharing of towels, sheets or clothes, going to school with, socialize or working with HIV-positive persons, sharing of cutlery or cups and plates, sneezing or coughing, touching, hugging or having a closed mouth kiss, contact with animals, seeing that HIV is a human virus and can't be transmitted by animals. Symptoms. Most people will show certain symptoms similar to that of glandular fever about 3 weeks after infection with the HIV virus. Fever and night sweat. Sore muscles and exhaustion. Sore throat. Swollen glands. Diarrhea. A skin rash and sores on the inside of the mouth and sexual organs. Headaches, sore eyes, and light sensitivity. These early symptoms are called HIV seroconversion because it happens when the body starts producing antibodies against the virus. After this, a person may not have symptoms for as long as 10 years. After this, the symptoms presented can be as follows: unexplained weight loss, more than 10% of the body weight. Swelling of the glands in the neck, armpits, and groin. The body is easily bruised, blue marks. Repetitive abnormal skin rash, often itchy. A thick white layer on the tongue, oral thrush, or vagina, vaginal thrush. Vaginal discharge and lower abdominal pain. Blocked sinuses. Repetitive herpes. Shingles. Sore throat. Repetitive unexplained fever attacks that last for more than 10 days. Night sweat or cold fever. Coughing and shortness of breath. Repetitive serious diarrhea, for longer than a month. Sight that changes. Muscle pain, loss of muscle control and power, lameness. Discoloration of or purple growths on the skin or in the mouth or nose. Problems with concentration, inability to do mental tasks which the person was previously able to do, disorientation and a change of personality. Symptoms are a bit different with children. Oral thrush. Repetitive bacterial infections like ear infection. Repetitive gastroenteritis, infection of the stomach and intestines. Swollen saliva glands, parotitis. Swollen lymph glands in the neck, armpits, and groin. Enlargement of the milt and liver. Stunted growth or the inability to achieve milestones like walking and talking. Pace the activity and answer the questions. Epidemic. An infectious disease that spreads quickly over a vast area and which disappears after a time. Examples: flu epidemic, gastric epidemic, etc. Pandemic. An illness that spreads quickly over a whole country or bigger area. Example: pandemic malaria. The management of medication, diet, a healthy lifestyle and positive attitudes. Research on HIV and AIDS is ongoing and new information comes to light regularly. There are medications which can dramatically delay the illness, but there is no medication which can cure AIDS. There is also no inoculation against HIV infection. It means that the only effective way to control the spread of HIV is to inform people well about the illness. The individual can then lead his or her life in such a way that the risk to contract the HIV infection is greatly reduced. Furthermore, countries' health services should put measurements in place to thoroughly test blood and blood products and to prevent cross-infection by the use of infected medical equipment. Persons who think they might be infected with the HIV virus have to get professional advice from a qualified doctor or other health provider as soon as possible. The sooner the person receives medication, the greater the chances are that the person may contract HIV. The following people run the greatest risk to contract HIV. Persons with a promiscuous lifestyle and who sleep around. Persons who share needles, for example for intravenous drug use, tattooing or piercings. Babies of HIV-positive mothers. People with sexually transmitted diseases, especially those with open sores and boils caused by herpes and syphilis. Hemophilia sufferers, bleeding illness, and other people who regularly receive blood products. This risk is now much lower, but there are certain countries where blood is not sufficiently tested. Health workers when precautionary measures are not followed, for example, not wearing gloves. When to consult a doctor. A professional health worker should be consulted if a person ran the risk of HIV infection, lives promiscuously, experiences any of the named symptoms. It is important that a person who has AIDS should follow a healthy lifestyle. 1. The person should follow a healthy, balanced diet with enough antioxidants. Take in enough fresh fruits and vegetables. The best way to take it is to eat it raw or by cooking it for just a small amount of time. 2. The person can still exercise. 3. The person should try to have a positive attitude. It is therefore important for the person to lead as normal a life as possible and to go on with his or her life and work. 4. The person should take her or his medication regularly. Antiretroviral medications delay the tempo in which the virus can multiply. Even if they can't destroy the virus, they can prolong the symptom-free phase of the illness by delaying the multiplication of the virus. Antiretroviral medications include nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors like zidovudine and lamivudine, non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors like nevirapine. However, the virus becomes resistant against the medication so that the medication is no longer effective. The medications are very expensive. 5. Avoid other sick people or places where you can be exposed to bacteria. HIV or human immunodeficiency virus is transmitted from an infected person to another by bodily fluids. After infection, the virus stays in the body for life. It attacks the immunity system, which protects the body against infection, and eventually destroys it. AIDS or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is an illness which is caused by a latent, slowly growing virus known as HIV. AIDS develops in the final stages of the HIV infection. It is not a single illness, but a whole condition, syndrome, when the immunity system no longer works. It is of utmost importance that you take care not to contract the virus, and if there is the slightest chance that you could contract it, you should discuss it with your parents, a teacher, or other adult you can trust. Something like this can even happen on the sports field or playing area when you come into direct contact with another player or child's blood. Prevention and safety measures regarding HIV/AIDS. HIV is not as infectious as people think. The virus can't live outside of the body for a long time and can only be transmitted directly through bodily fluids like blood. The virus can enter the body through damp surfaces like mucous membranes or by direct injection into the blood. Virus concentrations in blood and bodily fluids are the highest immediately after someone was infected with HIV and also in an advanced stage when AIDS has developed. Immediately after infection, the virus multiplies quickly because the immunity system hasn't yet had time to control the illness, and also again in the late stages because the virus has destroyed the immunity system. The risk of HIV infection therefore also depends on the stage of infection of the HIV-positive person. Once someone is infected with HIV, his or her blood and other bodily fluids stay infectious for life. Sores and wounds make you more vulnerable for infection because the virus can then enter the body easily. Prevention. There are several ways in which you can protect yourself against HIV infection. Lead a pure life. Don't share needles or injections with other people in any way. Ensure that all medical and surgical instruments, including those used for pierces, are exposed of after being used or are at least sterilized well. Wear rubber gloves when you have to come into contact with another person's blood, for example when you have to help with a wound. Choose your friends carefully. Listen to your parents, they know what is best for you. Treatment. Home care is prescribed by a doctor and includes living healthily to strengthen the immunity system. It means that the person should eat healthily and balanced, get enough rest and avoid cigarettes and alcohol. Preventative care for opportunistic infections include primary prevention, to prevent an illness before it manifests, and secondary prevention, prevention of a repetition of an illness that has already manifested. Children should get their normal inoculations, but if they already have AIDS they shouldn't be inoculated against TB. Because their immunity systems are already under fire, they can be infected with the bacteria in the vaccine. Extra inoculations may be prescribed for adults and children. All kids and adults with the symptoms of HIV should regularly take the antibiotic cotrimoxazole. This antibiotic prevents Pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. Adults or children who had TB or came into contact with people with TB, especially at home, should take medication against TB. A further element of care focuses on the strengthening of the immunity system. In general, one should look well after your health and immunity system. Furthermore, infections should be treated early before they become too serious. Researchers at the University of Stellenbosch developed a remedy with the name Moducare from the African potato. It strengthens the immunity system and helps to slow down the HIV infection. Follow-up care includes regular health visits to monitor the course of the illness, to diagnose other infections and treat them, and to come up to date with new treatments. Regular visits to the dentist are important because people with HIV have a higher incidence of mouth diseases, including infection of the gums. HIV-positive people are sometimes treated strangely by other people or even avoided because they have an infectious disease. They are also anxious about the threat of disease and death. It is therefore important to get emotional support from a psychologist or group. It can also happen that when it becomes known that the person has HIV, colleagues no longer want to work with the person and that an employer wants to fire them. Kids can be shunned by other kids. However, persons with AIDS are protected by the law and information on human rights can be obtained by an AIDS organization. Pace the activity and answer the questions. What is nation building? The words Rainbow Nation were coined by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He used the words to describe South Africans' different cultures, traditions, histories, and languages. Each group in South Africa has its own language and do certain things that make them different from other groups. The different cultural groups influence each other, and the more integrate with each other, the more the influence is. It especially happens in cities where different groups live and work together that they will influence each other's languages and traditions directly. To prevent conflict between the groups, we must learn to accept each other's differences. We must also have respect for each other's traditions, even if we don't always agree with them. Nation building is directed at the working together of all the different cultures in South Africa to enhance the unity and future of South Africans. Nation building can only be successful if we get to know other cultures. Rainbow Nation. It is all the diverse cultures in South Africa. Nation building. It is when a nation as a whole works together to build a country and thus ensure the future of the country. Ways in which nation building can be promoted. One of the most important projects to promote nation building is the Proudly South African project. It encourages South Africans to buy products which are produced in our country. By supporting the project, we also support our local companies, and this encourages job creation. The logo of Proudly South African. It is the symbol of companies, products, and services that are produced in South Africa and which is unique to our country. It encourages economic growth and job creation. The logo also ensures that the product which you buy complies with the high local contents and quality standards, and that the companies who produce them are bound by fair labor practices and a good environmental policy. The logo has the same colors as our country's current flag, and the right mark is a symbol of good quality and approval. Therefore, buy true South African products as far as possible. It is to the benefit of our country's economy and our people. There are various other projects that ensure that our country's different cultures get the opportunity to come into contact with each other and thus ensuring respect for each other. Schools take children who never had the experience before on trips to places like the Kruger National Park and other extracurricular trips. Here the children learn of nature and nature conservation. They also learn about the habits of other cultures. Some schools also use the method of exchanging students between different schools. Black learners from underprivileged communities get the chance to attend more affluent schools, and children from more privileged schools attend the less privileged schools. The children then experience what the other group's experience is like and can therefore step into each other's worlds, which leads to a better understanding between the two groups. Society can also contribute towards nation building by starting certain actions. A lot of communities have mixed cultures. The community can organize activities in which all cultures can participate, and by that helping them to learn from and understand each other. It is especially important for children in a mixed culture to understand each other and work together for a better future. Sport is a good way to do this. Communities can practice and support each other's sports. We live in a country with diverse cultures. It is important to leave our differences behind and work at building the economy and social community. The children currently living in our country are the leaders of tomorrow, and if they learn to live together now, it will ensure a positive future for our country. South Africa's various holidays and our national emblems. The government makes a lot of effort to bring together all the people in the country into one nation. The introduction of public holidays like Human Rights Day, Freedom Day, and Day of Reconciliation is aimed to bring together people of all different cultures. After the election in 1994, all public holidays were changed to days of commemoration. Each day is a symbol of an important happening. We will shortly look at the days of commemoration which remind us about the political struggle in South Africa and which were established to yearly remind us of it. The establishment of these days is also an effort towards nation building. They unite all the cultures in our country. Human Rights Day, the 21st of March. This day commemorates the massacre at Sharpeville on the 21st of March, 1960. Dissatisfied black people started gathering at the police station. The police tried to chase them away and started shooting at the people. A total of 69 black people died and numerous were wounded. This incident stood out as one of the most important tragic highlights of the freedom fight of black people during the apartheid era in South Africa. Freedom Day, the 27th of April. Our country's first fully democratic election was held on the 27th of April, 1994. The new Constitution of South Africa was put into place on the 4th of February, 1997. Youth Day, the 16th of June. This day is a commemoration of the Youth's Uprising in 1976, when it was ordained that Afrikaans should partly be established as language in schools. It led to months of violent rebellion under the youth. It commemorates all the young people who lost their lives in the struggle against apartheid and Bantu education. Heritage Day, the 24th of September. The day was established so that all South Africans, no matter what their culture is, can commemorate their heritage. Nobody should forget who he or she is and where they come from. Heritage Day is also about reaching out to other cultures who differ from my own. Elements of nation building, patriotism, reconciliation, and national unity should therefore be emphasized. The day also has the aim to make the youth aware of the importance of our heritage and that they should honor it. Nation building also encompasses people's pride in the coat of arms and the national symbols of our country. Let's shortly look at these to freshen your memory. Our current coat of arms. It is a symbol of unity for a country's citizens. The sun. A symbol of energy. It is right on top of the coat of arms. The secretary bird. Underneath the sun is a secretary bird. They are known to fight with snakes and symbolize protection. The spread-out wings symbolize that it will take the country under its wings and inspire nations and citizens to reach for new heights. A protea. Nearly on the chest of the secretary bird is the national flower, the protea, which is also part of the country's natural heritage. It symbolizes the country's potential to develop. The spear and knobkerrie. The protea rests on a spear and knobkerrie which are laid down. It symbolizes power and peace. Two Khorasan figures. In the middle are two Khorasan figures on a shield. It symbolizes a shared heritage. Two wheat sheaves. On the outside of the shield are two wheat sheaves. They symbolize fertility and growth. Four elephant tusks. On the outside of the wheat sheaves are two elephant tusks on both sides. They symbolize wisdom, power, moderation, and stability. The national tree, real yellowwood. The real yellowwood is an indigenous evergreen tree found in many parts of South Africa, especially in forests and mountainous areas. It can grow into a very large and tall tree and may live for hundreds of years. Its scientific name is Podocarpus latifolius. The tree gets its name from the yellowish color of its wood. In the past, yellowwood timber was widely used to make furniture, floors, and other wooden products. Today, these impressive trees are an important part of South Africa's natural heritage. The national flower, King Protea. The King Protea is South Africa's national flower and is one of the best-known plants in the country. Its scientific name is Protea cineroides. It has a very large flower head surrounded by colorful pointed bracts, which may be pink, red, or creamy white. The King Protea grows naturally in the southwestern and southern parts of South Africa and is well adapted to the Cape's fire-prone environment. The flower represents the beauty and diversity of South Africa's unique plant life. The national fish, galjoen. The galjoen is South Africa's national fish. Its scientific name is Dichysteus capensis, and it is found mainly along the South African coastline. Galjoen usually live around rocky shores where there are strong waves and plenty of seaweed. They have strong bodies and can appear dark brown, grey, or almost black in rocky areas. Galjoen are closely associated with South Africa's coastal environment and are an important symbol of the country's rich marine life. The national bird, blue crane. The blue crane is South Africa's national bird and is recognized by its elegant shape, long legs and pale blue-grey feathers. Its scientific name is Anthropoides paradiseus. It is found mainly in South Africa, particularly in open grasslands, agricultural areas, and parts of the Karoo. Blue cranes usually feed on seeds, grasses, insects, and other small animals. During courtship, they perform beautiful dances involving jumping, bowing, and spreading their wings. The blue crane represents the unique bird life of South Africa. The national animal, springbok. The springbok is South Africa's national animal and one of the country's most recognizable antelope species. Its scientific name is Antidorcas marsupialis. Springbok are especially well suited to dry grasslands and semi-desert regions such as the Karoo and Kalahari. They are fast runners and are famous for a behavior called pronking, where they leap high into the air with stiff legs. Springbok can survive for long periods in dry conditions by obtaining much of the moisture they need from the plants they eat. The animal is strongly associated with South African wildlife and national pride.